The hype surrounding a potential Jakob Chychrun trade has intensified in the last few days. Should we expect movement soon? We answer that question on today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Robyn Leonio. That's Carl Pavlak. To this episode of Locked On Coyotes. This episode brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more with FanDuel. We got a great show for you guys on today's episode. We're talking about Jakob Chychrun because Carl, in the last few days, hockey Twitter has decided just to go crazy that maybe a trade might be happening soon.
Yeah, definitely. Which I think when we were talking at the start of the season, I predicted Chychrun would be traded before the All-Star break. I was definitely incorrect in that, but I may have been close because things are definitely heating up now.
And let's talk about it because, and it was addressed by Craig as well, and the idea that Chychrun had scrubbed some of his social media, and it got people thinking, what's happening here?
Yeah, I mean. There's that. Things definitely seem to be intensifying. Apparently, Chychrun very rarely uses Twitter. I don't personally like to follow player accounts because sometimes it feels like a lot of their personal life, and you don't necessarily want to amplify that too much. But yeah, I am very curious to see what's going to happen. I'm not sure, We have a couple games coming up. We have a 3-game road trip. Is he going to be scratched for any of those games while a trade talk is imminent? What is the potential return? It's a very interesting time.
It is an interesting time, and I'm not sure what if how close I was if I agreed with you it was going to be All-Star break, or if I said somewhere between All-Star break to trade deadline.
I think you were more trade deadline. That definitely, but who knows? It feels like a lifetime ago, the start of the season. But we were making
and then I think a lot of our thoughts had gone up and down on what his deal was going to be because, we're wondering, okay, is Chychrun really going to be coming back from his injury? Is he really going to be completely up to par? Is he going to be what we expect? Are we going to see more of last year where he didn't play his best season? If we really wanted to increase his trade value, he needed to go out with and start off his season return with a bang, and he did do that. Increased his trade value, but I think a lot of other NHL organizations don't view it wasn't enough.
It's interesting because you never really know. Teams are playing things very close to the vest. When we talked about Chychrun, it was before he had skated. And I do think that he has looked extremely good in his return. Something I mentioned before we started recording is last season in 47 games, Chychrun had 7 goals and 21 points. It was a -20. This season, in just 35 games, 7 goals, 27 points, is a +6. Plus minus, not the best stat. You should not take it as any kind of major indicator, but it is kind of
it tells a story.
Yeah, it's a broad stroke appeal of like looking at a player between two seasons. And I do think Chychrun is playing much better. I think the big problem is the rest of the league has caught on to the fact that Chychrun is kind of injury prone. And though he looks good right now, he has missed significant time in his career with the Coyotes because of injuries.
True. While true, I think a lot of things can be said that in the NHL teams have looked past that in some ways and still offer better players just absolutely dumb contracts.
Yeah. And he is on a very team-friendly deal right now. So I'm not saying it can't get done. I do think it's just like tampering the buzz just a little bit. But you're right. GMs like will go crazy with contracts for injury prone players, and you're like, is that a good idea? But that's why they get paid the big bucks, I guess.
I guess so, but yeah, I think seeing Elvis intensify and see where Jakob Chychrun's at, we're getting really close. We are getting absolutely close to him potentially getting traded. And throughout this episode, we're going to talk about, where his value is at, a potential, maybe, potential suitors, anything like that. Because I feel like we're at the point in which we can guess a little bit more. We know the teams that are interested, roughly. We can figure it out.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a better picture right now. Also because there's just a better picture of what the standings are right now versus before the season began, when you're like, I don't know, if you're taking a big risk acquiring a player, and if you end up being like, say, the Columbus Blue Jackets and finishing way below expectations, that may be a bad idea.
Yeah, so we're going to have to start taking a look at that and see where we think, start putting some things into place. I'll let it more on this episode of Locked On Coyotes. Before we get into any of that, though, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. And this year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sportsbook in America. And once again, yes, that is FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports super fun and easy. And right now, if you download FanDuel, you can bet on Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. I'm looking at the Super Bowl card, and I'm looking at, getting a really big same-game parlay out there because, it's a $10 bet that could potentially yield me, $700-800. I'll take it. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe and easy to use, and it's very simple. Best of all, you can get your winning instantly. What I really love about that, you can just get things, cash in, and absolutely love it. Join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports partner of the NFL. So let's move on then, Carl. Talk a little more about where we see this happening, because the value of Chychrun, as we've mentioned, went up and down. Where do you see his value in terms of what is a good, in terms of jokes on this side before we go into anything potentially specific, like a good expected return?
So I think throughout the Chychrun trade saga, which has been happening for a season and a half, the go-to was always a player, a prospect, and a first-round pick. And I am pretty happy with a return like that. Maybe throwing a little bit extra if the player you're getting back isn't that good, or the prospect. I do think the Coyotes are in a spot where like having a prospect is going to be very key. Building from the blue line is going to be key. I don't necessarily think they need to be getting a first round pick for this upcoming draft from a team that's expected to compete. Maybe one a couple years down the line. That could be an interesting way to make sure that they are well stocked in the future.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I feel like I kind of stuck to that idea, and I feel like a lot of us are kind of sticking to that point. A player, prospect, and a draft pick, because like it's safe. It gives you the idea. Especially if it's like a first rounder, because a first round draft pick, I think that's the most important one, because we're talking about a rebuilding team, right? You can get some good picks second, third round, but if the upcoming draft, a first rounder means a lot.
Yeah. I think not only do the Coyotes need a return like that because they are a rebuilding team, Chychrun is worth that. Like, we saw that in his last game, 2 goals. He has been very good in his return. And I do think that silences a decent amount of doubt. So if you're a team that's looking to up your defense, I don't think you can get much better than Jakob Chychrun on a very team-friendly deal too.
Oh, 100%. And if you look at how good he plays with Arizona, you would think on a competitive team, he can provide a lot more.
Yeah.
And he can be potentially an X factor on a team that wants to make a playoff push.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think the fact that he was playing a lot with Shane Gostisbehere, who like helped him up his game, definitely showed what he can do with a more skilled partner. He did not have that last season with the Coyotes.
No, because I think because those two players were split. Chychrun was supposed to be commanding top pair minutes. Gostisbehere was second pair. And because we didn't know what Gostisbehere was going to be either. We're like, Gostisbehere might be just there to fit in the middle and maybe just kind of float. He ended up being a lot better than any of us expected. So
I thought he was gonna I thought he was gonna bounce. I didn't expect him to bounce as high as he did. I think I had a little bit more confidence in you, but yeah, he blew that out.
Not that my confidence was extremely dim. If it was, I'd be like, yeah, no, he's just gonna be tailboating third pair of minutes. No, I was definitely not that. Because again, this is a kid that was part of the that U24 team North America from the World Cup World Cup of Hockey back in 2016, 2017.
Amazing jersey.
I know that was the best jersey in the World Cup of Hockey, 100%.
Yeah. Just and the idea of like the Young Guns team. The World Cup of Hockey was fun. Why did we stop doing the World Cup of Hockey?
Bring it back.
Yeah.
Especially that U2014, the U2014 North America. Just do more of that.
U24 North America team, just have that be a competition, because that's so good. But yeah. Going back to Chychrun, because we got sidetracked a little. I do think that Gostisbehere was hurt, but he and Chychrun played really well. Like, you can imagine it much easier to slot Chychrun in to any spot on a competitive team, and you are going to get an instant upgrade.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think the most important thing about this is, yeah, of course, we can go much and much about Chychrun's talent and how much that already increases his value, but the fact that he is that good and he's on a team-friendly deal, like anyone can be like, okay, yeah, that's an easy contract that we can easily pick up for a little bit.
Yeah, like that is a contract that is. What does he have? Like 1 more year left, 2?
1 or 2, yeah, something like that. Yeah. I think it's 1. Yeah.
2 more years left. After this, 4.6 though. Jakob Chychrun is worth way more than 4.6.
And let's compare that to, and it's a really rough comparison because like you're talking still different skill levels here, but it's a comparison that can still technically be made. In a team, let's look at San Jose, right? They've been talking about wanting to trade Erik Karlsson.
Sure.
They cannot do that because Karlsson is on a contract of still several years left at $11.5 million that absolutely no one is going to take.
Yeah. After the season, Karlsson has 4 more years
at $11.5 million. Yeah, no, like you'd have to get a team that is struggling to reach the floor to say, okay, we'll take a massive chunk of that as salary retained in favor of this massive thing too.
I am sure I am sure there is some GM out there who can organize like a 3-way trade to get Karlsson moved. I really want to see that now. But you are right. It is much easier to move a player like Jakob Chychrun than a player like Erik Karlsson, even though Erik Karlsson is having one of the best seasons of his career and seems like a lock for the Norris.
Oh, absolutely. And again, there's a huge thing in the tight salary cap era right now. These next couple of years, every dollar counts.
Yeah. And Karlsson demands a lot of dollars.
A lot of dollars. Anyways, though, were you going to say something?
I'm just going to ask you, do you think, like, even if COVID didn't happen and the salary cap didn't, like, completely stagnate, if it continued to go up like normal, that still would have been a bad deal for Karlsson at this point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you look at the defensemen who got paid in those years, Karlsson and who was it also got paid that much? Was it Doughty? Yeah. Karlsson and Doughty got paid the same money. And you look at it now, he's like, ooh, God, I guess that's why we don't pay defensemen close to $12 million.
Yeah. It is. I mean, at least with Doughty, because that was with LA, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's like keeping a guy who helped you win a couple of cups. Karlsson is bringing in the shiny free agent. So that is 2 very different scenarios. But yeah, the career of Erik Karlsson, San Jose Shark, has been fascinating to watch.
Yeah, it definitely has been. But what we're going to do in a little bit, though, is maybe we'll talk some potential suitors of, who has kind of shown themselves to be the most likely to be running for Jakob Chychrun. We're going to get to that in just a moment, though. But first, we're going to take a quick word from our sponsors.
Today's episode brought to you by Built Bar. Are you looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you gotta try Built Bar. What makes a Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy with only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built bars on built.com, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. If you're close to a Sam's Club, you could run in and grab a 13 bar box with one of our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later.
All right, so now let's get to potential suitors, Carl, because there are some names out there who have gone up and down as potential suitors. And I'll start with one, because one team has continued to be on the top 3 teams as a suitor, and it makes me question what exactly could they actually offer, and that's the Ottawa Senators.
That is one of the teams that I wasn't even thinking about. The Ottawa Senators, yeah, they were really big in the preseason rumors. I haven't heard them as much lately, but they definitely have a few interesting pieces that we could potentially see. I would just figure that it would be a more serious team looking to acquire Jakob Chychrun.
Yeah, it's possible. I think that's to me, I've been as the news, getting the aggregate news sites and everything like that. I feel like that continue to be there. And the reason why I'm kind of dismissing it, I'm saying yes, it was on there, but I'm dismissing it as maybe not though, is the fact that almost every single news outlet that has mentioned it still mentions that the Coyotes would have to take back Nikita Zaitsev's contract. And I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah. I don't know why you're doing favors for a Chychrun trade unless you're getting a lot back. The Senators seem like a team that want to buy their way into prosperity and or an owner. Like maybe the perspective or the current ownership is like, hey, you know what can really get Ryan Reynolds? Jakob Chychrun. He would love Reynolds would love Chychrun. So
I will say this though. Laugh at me all you want if you are a Senators fan or if you're a fan of any other hockey team. But I will absolutely say this, that sure, you can go ahead and do that Zaitsev deal, but you'd have to do a extremely sweeten the pot on the Senator side. And that does include, yes, offering up Shane Pinto. I think that's the big one. If you offer up Shane Pinto, that's a good deal. That kind of really makes a difference there. But
I would rather just take the Senators' next 3 first-round picks. Because that is a franchise that I expect to just crash and burn continuously. That may come back to bite me, but for the next 3 years, I do not expect the Senators to be good. One team that I've heard a lot, I'm not sure if you've seen it, I would absolutely hate to see this, but the Los Angeles Kings.
That name has come up, yes. How would you structure a deal with them?
No clue. I don't know how I would make the deal work. But the Kings are a team that I feel like is in a position where getting Chychrun is going to put them to the next level that they need.
Now, I will say this. I do remember you and I were on an LA Kings podcast of a different network.
We were.
And we talked about it, right? And I believe one of the hosts said they would potentially offering up one of the bigger name Kings prospects. I don't want to say it was Byfield. Was it Byfield?
I think it may have been Byfield and someone else, because I remember this. We went into it like Byfield as like the baseline, and they threw on 2 prospects on top.
No, actually, we didn't even ask for Byfield because we didn't even think it was worth asking because we thought they'd say no right away, and they were like, "What about Quentin Byfield?" We're like, "Oh, now we're talking."
Yeah, and I mean, the Kings are in a position right now. They're 3rd in the Pacific, 63 points, 1 back from the Golden Knights. Like, they get a player like Chychrun, that is an instant upgrade.
Oh, it is an instant upgrade. That can potentially make him that extra push because the Pacific Division still isn't great.
The Pacific Division isn't great, and let's be honest, the Central isn't much better.
The Western Conference is not good this year.
No, it is not. Like, unless the Avalanche get really healthy and just dominate the postseason, like it's really anyone's guess who makes it to the final, in my opinion.
Yeah, Eastern Conference is anyone's guess because it's a lot better over there.
Yeah. All right. Do you have another team?
I'm trying to think of another team. I'm trying to, because I had a list up here for some reason. It's not loading for me.
So I've heard 2 others that we can talk about.
Okay.
Edmonton or Toronto?
Those are 2 teams, yes, that had definitely got brought up. I believe Edmonton was definitely interested. I think they kind of scoured up and kind of got shot up in the last few days, I believe, as a name. Toronto, I believe, was also there, but also was like, by the way, though, that their asking price is ridiculous or something like that.
Yeah. But that's Toronto media. What are you going to do? Like, they think that Toronto should just be gifted all of their players.
True.
I have definitely seen a little bit more, and I'm not sure like kind of where it's coming from. But I'm seeing a lot more Edmonton. They're in a very similar position to the Kings. They have a chance. And how many years do you really want to waste Connor McDavid?
That's a hard question.
It really is. Like, the Edmonton Oilers should be in must-win mode every single season. Like, at least the Penguins got like an early cup with Crosby.
Yeah, 100%. And it makes you, I mean, and we'll also be fair with, I mean, I'm trying to think, because Crosby in his Stanley Cup years had a lot of help. Obviously, he was a huge part of the Penguins winning 3 Stanley Cups, but we're talking of a team that had Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang, and you can keep naming other players, but it had a lot of help. And I'm not saying that Edmonton, with playing on his name right now.
Nurse,
yeah, but who's the other top guy too?
Draisaitl?
Yes, Leon Draisaitl. With Leon Draisaitl, I don't know why I forgot his name, but it should be a solid Edmonton team. But maybe, just maybe, trying to make up for a defenseman like Jakob Chychrun can really make all that much of a difference.
Well, I do feel like Edmonton has never had a great blue line. Like, in the years that they've had Connor McDavid, like it was never their strong suit. If I'm remembering correctly, definitely wasn't something that I remember them being known for. They also haven't had good goaltending, considering they had Mike Smith for a while. But like, I feel like getting a player like Chychrun, like adding that level of skill, could make the Oilers very dangerous. And the Oilers should want to be a very dangerous team.
Now, that makes me wonder, too, because we talked about the potential excuse me, potential deals with the Kings, and also like how like the Senators would look. But the Oilers are an interesting team, and like I'm trying to think of where they're offer up, what kind of players they can offer up. Looking at their, let's see if we can look at their some of their prospects. It's hard to tell, to be honest. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially because we haven't necessarily heard the most substantiated rumors. I think everyone I've ever seen has been like, we could probably get Chychrun 1-1. And it's like, no, you can't.
No.
But I mean, there's definitely like, the Coyotes do need a lot. So I think they can be pretty flexible. I do feel like they need to start building on their blue line. So get a decent defensive prospect in there, first round pick, role player for the next couple of years. You should be good.
Absolutely. And as long as, like, yes, if the Coyotes are able to get a top 2 pick this next year and get either Connor Bedard or Adam Fantilli, you take that 100%. Yeah. But outside of that, if you have other first-round picks like they did last year, but instead of drafting another forward, draft a top defenseman. I am begging you, Coyotes, you have to do it if you want to rebuild this team.
Yeah. I am very worried that the team is going to regret not drafting Lane Hudson.
Probably.
Yeah.
Anyways, though, any final thoughts you want to bring up? Any other ideas you want to bring up before we close things off?
The trade talk is definitely heating up, but I just have to say, I enjoyed Chychrun's time on the Coyotes. I think anyone who's listened to the entirety of my time on the podcast has known that I wish Chychrun would stay with the team. I think he fits the rebuild better than any other option, but I guess if we got to make it happen, it's got to be big.
Oh yeah, 100%. Has to be big, and we'll see pretty soon. I'm pretty sure it's sooner rather than later. Absolutely, it feels that way. We're really close.
Yep.
But that's going to be it for this episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robyn_Leonio. Carl Pavlak is at Carl Pavlak FH. Interact with us, ask a question you might have, we might answer right back, or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.